Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Today we will hear the story of how even the closest of people can cause permanent injuries. I was alone for a very long time after I divorced my first wife. We didn't live together long, but we had a son who lived with me and her. Time passed, my son grew up, and having graduated with honors from school, he decided to go to study in England. He successfully applied and flew to another country. After we said goodbye to him at the airport, I called my friend Frank and invited him to the bar to celebrate. We took our seats at the bar in low chairs, and the bartender immediately served us, pouring us a shot of whiskey. "Well, Jake, here's to your son." Frank said a toast. "Yeah, he's a smart kid." "Why haven't you got your life together yet?" "I don't know, Frank. It was important to me to get my son back on his feet." "Well, he's on his own now." "Oh, look, they're at the edge of the counter. I think they're looking at us." He noticed two young women, also two of them sitting at the counter having a drink. I looked at them. Yes, they were cute, but I wasn't in a hurry to get involved with anyone. Frank called the bartender over and asked him to pour the girls a cocktail each. After they got their drinks and found out from the bartender who had treated them, they moved closer to us. Frank was more relaxed and immediately struck up a conversation with them. He had his pick of the busted blonde, and I was paired with the more demure brunette Grace. She even seemed prettier to me than Frank's date. Grace and I got to talking while the two of them went dancing after drinks, and she was good-natured and had a good sense of humor. She shared with me that she too had been divorced, although it hadn't happened as long ago as it had with me. As we continued to chat, it turned out that we had a lot of common interests. After the bar, I offered to walk her home, and she gladly agreed. "Why don't you come in for a cup of coffee?" she suggested when we were outside her house. "It must be late." I hesitated. "Let's do it another time." I didn't want it to be a one-night stand. I really liked Grace. I hadn't felt this way about a woman in a long time. I wanted to go out with her again. We exchanged phone numbers, and I invited her to meet me the next day at the park for a walk. She willingly agreed, and our meeting ended with a sweet kiss. We've been dating ever since. Frank and his blonde broke up the very next morning, and Grace and I plunged into a romantic relationship like high schoolers and soon decided to get married. I was glad about this course of events. I liked Grace, my son was doing well, Grace had moved in with me, and the house was much cozier with her arrival. The 3 years just flew by unnoticed. I was happy to be romantically involved with the woman I loved. Everything was going great. I got a promotion. My son called and said he could come home for a couple of months. They were renovating the campus for the summer break, and he wanted to come to visit us. "Yeah, plus I missed you, Dad. And I can't wait to meet my stepmom. You sound so much happier now." He was on the phone. "What about your practice? It's so important to you. I would not like you to interrupt your studies, although I miss you very, very much myself, son." "The practice is fine. Don't worry. Get my room ready. I'll see you soon." I shared the news with Grace, and she was happy too. "Oh, that's wonderful. You must really miss him. I don't have kids, but I know what you mean." "Thank you, Grace. I'd like to throw a party to celebrate his arrival. You can help me with that." "I would love to. I'd love to." I decided to have a party with my loved ones. I invited only Frank and his new girlfriend, and he helped me to stock up on food and drink. Grace started to decorate a little bit the living room where we were going to celebrate. She also prepared some homemade meals for his arrival. We ordered the rest from the restaurant. Daniel arrived on the afternoon flight, and I went to the airport to pick him up. Grace stayed home to finish the arrangements. There are few words to describe how happy I was to see him again. Even though I knew the study was very important to his future, I missed him so much. We arrived home just as everything was ready. "God, it's nice to be home again. If you only knew how much I miss being back home." My son said, "I can see it's gotten a lot cozier around here." Yes, Grace did that. There she is. "I'd like you to meet Grace." "Grace." I introduced her when she came out of the kitchen. "Grace, this is my son Daniel." "Nice to meet you." She offered her hand to her son to shake in greeting. He kissed her hand in return. "I too am very pleased to meet the one who made my father happy again." "Oh, I see that being in England has greatly transformed you." I complimented my son on his manners. "Yes, Papa, you're right. I have changed a little." Soon my friend arrived and we had a great evening celebrating my son's success. We didn't break up until after midnight. Daniel went straight to bed. Aside from the party, the flight also tired him out. Grace and I stayed up to clean up a bit. I decided to help her with the dirty dishes. Let's just put everything in the sink and clean up the rest tomorrow. You must be tired too. Not really. I can clean up today. You don't have to worry. Oh, Grace. Oh, thank you. You did a really good job. It's nothing. I'm glad you finally got to see your son. I know how important it is to you. I hugged her in gratitude, helped her a little more in the kitchen, and then went to bed myself. Grace was still downstairs. The next day, I started asking my son about his studies, how he was spending his time there, and if he had a girlfriend. He answered some questions right away, and some he was reluctant to answer. He said that his studies were going well. He was busy all the time in class and in practice. Sometimes he went out for a walk with his friends. Why are we always talking about me? Tell me, how did you decide to start a family again? He decided to change the subject. It just so happens that we met. Yeah, Grace is very nice, but you'll always be my favorite son. But I won't call her mom. He smiled. Oh, son, I'm so glad you finally flew in. I'm even glad your campus is getting renovated. Oh, Dad, I almost forgot. By the way, about that renovation. The administration is asking students to donate some money to help make the renovations even better. Yeah? How much do they want? Well, they're asking for $5,000 each. To be honest, I was surprised by this information. I did not think that the funds for repairs will be ripped off from the students. And the amount is not small. But my son was my favorite child and I spared nothing for him. I agreed to give him the necessary amount. Satisfied with my agreement, he decided to go for a walk. A month passed. My son and I spent days together, and in the evenings he went out to clubs so he wouldn't miss the opportunity to have fun with young people. I hoped he would meet a girl during that time because he said he wasn't in a serious relationship in England. Grace paid a lot of attention to her son, trying to be kind and caring. I was glad they became friends. It meant a lot to me. My son also wanted to visit his mother, but I told him that she had gotten together with someone almost after he left for England and had flown off to Italy with a new lover herself. This is so unexpected. She didn't even text me once. I didn't know what was the matter with her or how she was. My son was a little sad. That's all right. If she's happy, I'm happy for her. I just found out about it myself. I haven't spoken to her. You know, she made up her own mind. I encouraged my son, but I could see he was a little sad. He only had me now, and I wanted to give him care for both parents so he would feel satisfied. At work, I asked for a couple of weeks off, and the supervisor was responsive and understanding of my situation and graciously granted me time off. I invited my son to go fishing at a nearby lake, but he refused. He preferred to spend the day at home, and in the evenings he went for walks by himself. I tried to entertain him from my side as best I could. But I understood that he was old enough to have his own interests and hobbies. One afternoon, when I was home alone, the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, there was a delivery man standing on the doorstep. He was holding a small box, asking if Daniel Rinn lived there. Yes, that's my son. There's a package for him. Is he home? No, he's not here right now. Then maybe you can get it for him. All right then. Then sign right here. The courier showed me the place where I had to sign. When I accepted the parcel, I decided to take it straight to my son's room. I turned the parcel in my hands and looked at it a few times during my journey. There was no return address on the parcel, only our address and my son's name. When I entered the room, I looked for a place to put the box. There was an empty space on the bedside table, so I went over and put the package down. The drawer of the bedside table was slightly pulled out and a piece of paper was sticking out of it. Unconsciously, I pulled it and filled it with curiosity to see what kind of document it was. On the piece of paper I pulled out was a notice about the expulsion of my son from the university where he studied. How could it be? I thought, but for what? And then why would he have turned in money for campus renovations? I knew there was something wrong here. I looked at the document again and saw that the date was long ago. I realized that my son had already been expelled a year after enrolling. But where was he then? Maybe he was in another school and he just did not want to tell me not to disturb me? A lot of questions immediately settled in my head. I intended to talk to my son as an adult. Even if he was at another university, I could understand that. But why was he so hesitant to tell me about it? I wanted to put the document back and open the drawer. There I saw a small paper bundle. Feeling a sharp inner excitement, I took out the bundle and opened it. There was a transparent bag of weed and some pills. It took my breath away from what I saw. Could it be that my son was using drugs? But how? I couldn't see anything on him. He looked like his usual self and he didn't complain about his well-being. What if he was dealing? I knew that if I asked him, he wouldn't tell me anything willingly. After putting everything back the way it was, I decided to follow my son in the future and find out what connected him to drugs. But on the first night, both he and my wife noticed my excitement. No, it's all right. It's just that you, son, are going away again soon, and I won't be able to see you again for a long time. Don't worry, Dad. Time will pass quickly. You'll see, before you know it, I'll be back again. Oh, son, I so hope everything will be all right. I was hoping I could follow him that night and find out what he was really up to, but that evening he stayed home. When I told him a package had been delivered, he thanked me and hurried to his room. I became terribly curious as to what was in the package. I sat for a few minutes, then decided to go to him. I hoped that I would abruptly open the door and casually see what he had received. But when I went to his door and tried to open it, the door was locked. I had no choice but to knock. Yes, Dad. What did you want? He opened the door after a minute. Since when do you lock yourself in? I'm entitled to my privacy. What did you want? Nothing in particular. I just wanted to ask if you'd like to have dinner and what you'd like. While I was asking, I tried to get a glimpse of that mysterious package, but I couldn't get anything. I don't care what you cook, that's what I'll have. I'm sorry, I need to be alone. He closed the door in front of me. Left with nothing, I went back to the living room. The next day, I saw that Daniel was going somewhere. I didn't ask him too many questions, just said good day. And when he left, I surreptitiously followed him. I followed him for a while, remaining unnoticed. After a few blocks, he went into one of the clubs that was still closed to the public, but he soon came out of there and drove on. Soon I saw that he had arrived at the hotel where Grace worked. I followed him, and after paying the concierge, I found out where my son was headed. He didn't tell me much, of course, but I learned that Daniel had come to see my wife. I asked where exactly she might be, and the concierge confessed which floor and which rooms she was supposed to be cleaning at the time. Without wasting another minute, I hurried after him to find out what was going on. As I walked down the corridor, I listened to the doors near the designated rooms, and soon, behind one of the doors, I heard familiar voices. I did not knock and sharply kicked the door, causing it to swing open. I saw a picture that put me in a kind of shock. I saw my wife lying in bed with my son half naked. T-Hay both stared at me with surprise and fright. On the nightstand beside the bed, I noticed the same bundle that was in Daniel's room. Jake? What are you doing here? Grace asked, frightened, covering herself with the bedspread. Dad? What you're doing here? Asked son, also surprised. Now the family is gathered, so that's where my money is going. Are you into drugs? Dad, no, it's just to relax. I see you relaxing here. Jake, Grace tried to argue. Shut up, fool. How could you? He's like a son to you in age. Are you? Is this how you repay your father for his love and care? Daddy. Don't you dare. You're not my son anymore. I know you were expelled. Why didn't you come back then? Why didn't you say anything? All right then. Yeah, I got expelled. I joined a local gang there and got accepted. I had a good time there. Till I owed some money. You bastard. I went up to him and pulled him off the bed. I wanted to give him a proper beating, but I'd never laid a hand on my son before. Remembering how my father had beaten me as a child, I just couldn't hit my child even though he had betrayed me in the end. Grace, seeing my anger, wanted to run out of the room, but when she reached for her clothes, I wouldn't let her take her clothes and put her out in the hallway with no clothes on. Run, run. If I catch up with you, I'll kill you. I shouted. Grace was frightened and ran so naked she was seen by several of the tenants who peeked out into the hallway at the noise. I didn't care what they thought. I was once again disappointed in a woman's loyalty. Later, I kicked them both out of the house. I made my son go to the police and turn in his drug dealer, then put him in the hospital for drug treatment. Frank told me about Grace later, telling me that after that incident she was dishonorably discharged and left town. The fate of this fallen woman is unknown to me. What do you think of this story? I feel insanely sorry for the main character because he was betrayed by his own son and wife. It's terrible. And the next story will be about a woman who wanted to deceive her husband but did not know that he had a backup plan. I have always wanted to have my own production. In my perspective, I considered the production of furniture. I didn't have the money to create a successful business and I didn't try to get into loans. I decided to start with the simplest. I learned about the most popular options and tried to make something similar in my garage. After some time, I began to succeed not only in making high-quality things, but also in successfully selling them. At first, my customers were acquaintances who liked my products. I did not make a big markup in order to collect as many potential customers as possible who shared information about me with their acquaintances and relatives. I combined metal structures and wood in my creations. Reliable, simple, and stylish interior attributes were obtained. These were small volumes because I worked alone, investing a minimum of funds. Gradually, I increased the volume of my production. I tried not to waste the money I got. I bought new equipment with this money in order to expand my capabilities. When I was already sure of the minimum turnover, I already rented a larger room and hired several employees, thus increasing the turnover. I was passionate about my business. The thought warmed my soul that this was my own business which brings profit, albeit a small one. Unfortunately, there was almost no time left for my personal life. I worked hard to reach certain heights in my business. Yet my personal life was not completely hopeless. Once I was invited by my friend Simon to his birthday party. The celebration took place in a rented large house with a large terrace. Simon liked to take walks in a big way. There were quite a lot of people here, but one blue-eyed blonde caught my attention. "Simon, tell me please, what kind of girl came to you for the holiday?" "You must be talking about Stacy. What, did you like the beauty?" "I was hoping you would meet her. She recently moved here and now she works with my wife." Simon replied with a smile. "Yes, the girl is very interesting in appearance." I quickly answered. "Well, so what are you losing? Come and meet." "Simon, you know that I'm not very good at getting to know each other. If I have a convenient moment, then I'll get to know each other." "You will walk alone until old age." "Stacy, can you come over here? I want to introduce you to my friend." Simon said and beckoned to Stacy. "Meet my friend, Billy. A very hard-working person. I've known him since school. He's a flink guy. He always keeps his word. A real prince, only without a horse." Simon jokingly introduced me. "Simon likes to talk a lot. Your name is Stacy. Did I hear you right?" Embarrassed, I turned to the girl. "Yes, exactly. Nice to meet you, Billy." Stacy looked at me with a smile. I don't know how I did it myself, but Stacy was surprisingly easy to communicate with. She was a truly extraordinary girl who I liked more and more with every new minute. I literally drowned in her big blue eyes. But we didn't get to talk for a long time. "Stacy, did something happen?" I asked anxiously, seeing Stacy's worried look. "I urgently need to go home. My father is not well and no one is around. I tried to call a taxi, but no one wants to take an order here, or they offer to wait a very long time. And everyone here is already drunk. No one can take me home. So I don't know what to do." "Stacy, don't worry. I came by car. I can give you a ride. I'm not a big fan of alcohol, so I'm sober today." "So give you a ride?" "Billy, you're just incredibly helped me out." Stacy answered briskly. We quickly got into the car and drove to Stacy's house. She specially moved here closer to her father in order to look after him. He was sick with her, and sometimes her father had seizures. It was necessary to watch him at this time. Everything was fine with my father. "Billy, I am very grateful to you. We just met today, and you have already helped me a lot." "It's all nonsense, Stacy." "Contact." I answered. "This is not nonsense. Billy, I owe you at least coffee. It's just too late today. How do you feel about meeting tomorrow for a cup of coffee?" "Stacy, that's a great suggestion. I will gladly agree." The next day we met again. The day was sunny but not hot. The weather was perfect for a walk. We laughed a lot and talked without awkward pauses. A slight wind slightly developed her wavy hair, from which it was hard for me to look away. But most of all, what made me happy was that Stacy reciprocated my feelings. We continued to meet, and it's been more than 18 years since we got married. From the moment we got married, I began to work even harder to provide everything for my beloved, and I was good at it. I already had a large production where high-quality furniture was produced. I moved from individual orders to mass production, supplying many stores with my goods, which sold very well. The income was already large enough, but Stacy was getting more and more spoiled. She had not worked for a long time and forgot what the price was for money. She took many things for granted, forgetting how hard it was at the very beginning for me to build all this. But I was ready to endure her whims, leading me to this day madly in love with Stacy. But the situation in our relations unfortunately did not get better. Stacy began to visit her friends more often, but she spent less and less time with me. Stacy, explain to me, maybe I don't understand something? Tell me honestly and right now. Have you got someone else? With a serious look and an alarmed voice, I asked my wife. Honey, what's wrong with you? Why are you asking such stupid questions? Stacy asked in surprise. We started talking less. You spend a lot of time with your girlfriends. I am not limiting you in any way. But I see that you are moving away from me. Stupid, well, what did you come up with again? I love you madly and I am ready to spend my whole life with you. It's just that I'm in that period right now. I am trying to understand myself and take a break from everyday life, which has become a heavy burden. I promise you that everything will change soon. I really wanted to believe Stacy, but I had a feeling that Stacy was not telling me something. I had an obsessive thought that Stacy either secretly goes somewhere when I'm not at home or brings someone to our house. I wanted to get rid of these thoughts, but the only thing I could think of was to install hidden cameras with sound. CCTV cameras have already been installed in my production. Everything worked well without failures, and I decided to turn to these guys again with a delicate request. John, hi. This is Billy. Remember I asked you to install cameras in my furniture shop? Yes, Billy, I remember. Something happened? Some kind of malfunction? No, John, everything is fine. Everything works like clockwork. I would like to contact you again. I need to install security cameras at home, but they should be as invisible as possible. Can you do this? Yes, Billy, no problem. I have a house with 5 rooms. I think cameras should be installed everywhere, and I also want them to record sound. How much time do you need for this? I think we can do it in a day. It would be great. Then I'll call you a little later, agree on a specific time. I knew that Stacy was going to go away for a couple of days to her sister. It was the perfect opportunity to install hidden cameras without her knowledge. John came with his team of specialists, and they did it in a day. I had remote access to hidden cameras in my house right on my phone. Everything was done as discreetly as possible. When Stacy returned, I began to actively follow her, but nothing strange or suspicious happened. She acted like nothing had happened. There were no suspicious conversations on the phone with anyone. Stacy didn't bring anyone home at all. After a while, I began to think that everything was really in order, and I just came up with another nonsense again. And now this situation with hidden cameras increasingly seemed to me a real paranoia. After some time, I had to go on a business trip for a week. On a business trip, I kept watching Stacy from time to time. To my surprise, she did not even go for a walk to her girlfriend's. She was at home most of the time. And suddenly I got a call from my friend, Charlie. Billy, hi. Hello, Charlie. Glad to hear you. And you friend. Listen, why didn't you contact me right away if you wanted to rent a house? Charlie asked me. In what sense? I wasn't going to rent a house. What are you talking about? Well, how? I saw Stacy 10 minutes ago near a small suburban area. I was driving nearby and I saw Stacy with a realtor. I no longer interfered. But I know this realtor, he works for my competitors. His prices go through the roof, but I could offer much more favorable conditions. I'm sorry, Charlie, but I really wasn't going to rent a house. I'm on a business trip right now. Then it's very strange. Well, anyway, let's meet sometime, have a drink, like in the good old days. All right, Charlie. See you when I get back from my business trip. Charlie's words alarmed me insanely. Perhaps he was wrong? I saw Stacy on the video. She was at home and did not go anywhere. I rewound the video to the moment when Stacy was allegedly not at home. In the video, she was cleaning at the time. I stared for a long time and drew attention to the included TV. The cameras shot with good quality. I zoomed in and saw that the news was on TV. You could see the date in the corner of the screen, and the date was old, a few days difference. This just shocked me. I thought there might be something wrong with the live footage. Maybe the memory card where everything was saved failed. But I didn't find anything. And then I started looking at other videos and was amazed. These were pre-recorded videos that were cleverly slipped to me under the guise of real time. But why? What was Stacy hiding? I called another friend, Mason. He was familiar with people who set up surveillance of a person. Mason put me in touch with these people and I asked them to start following my wife as a matter of urgency. I got the address from Charlie of the house where Stacy went, then I gave the address to the guys who will be watching my wife. I managed to do all this in a couple of days while I was still on a business trip. I transferred a large advance to the guys so that they immediately set to work. By the end of the week, when I was supposed to be returning from a business trip, they gave me a video. I eagerly turned on video recording on my laptop. I saw Stacy talking to some guy in the same house that Charlie told me about. Stacy, baby, why are you so worried again? I'm worried that we won't succeed. Honey, calm down. Your dumb husband doesn't even know that you know about hidden cameras at home. The video is well edited. He will not understand that this is another recording. For him, you are an obedient and faithful wife who is waiting for him at home. Even if we didn't succeed, I would provide for you for life. Soon my accounts will be unfrozen and I will show you life much brighter. We will travel around the world. But first we need to rob your husband. We can do this. Don't even doubt it. This redneck should be behind bars. All his estate will go to you. We'll sell everything to hell. You will be very rich. The plan is very good. We'll frame him and your husband will go to jail for a long time. I hope I didn't rent this house for you for nothing. It costs a lot of money. If the husband finds out about it ahead of time, then there will be a lot of unnecessary questions. Stacy, baby, don't think about it. Better come to me and I'll calm you down now, said this guy, and they started doing it on the floor. What I saw made my hair stand on end. In an instant, I found out that my wife was cheating on me and she also wants to take all my property and she wants to send me to jail. I didn't expect this turn of events. I've been trying to digest the information all day, but I just couldn't get over it. After a while, I did come to my senses. All the most tender feelings that I felt for Stacy turned into hatred and anger. I wanted revenge. I also got one interesting piece of information about the asshole slept with my wife. But more on that later. I called Stacy and, holding back my emotions, said that I still needed to stay on a business trip for a few more days. I quickly packed up and drove home. When I was already in my hometown, I called the guys I hired to look after my wife. They confirmed that Stacy was in the rented house at that time. I took the bat, got into the car, and drove up to this house. The door was locked. I kicked it open and went inside. What the heck? Shouted the assholes. Get it? I shouted and loaded this bastard in the teeth with a bat. Honey, calm down. I'll explain everything to you. Stacy tried to justify herself in hysterics. What are you going to explain to me? How did you want to set me up? How did you sleep behind my back with this crook? Was it not enough for you that I offered you? You're a venal bastard that's not even worth a piece of dirt on my shoe. Yes, even so. I found a real man who will not blame me and will give me everything I want. I'll sue half of your property. You stupid bitch. Did you fall for his sweet talk about wealth? Yes, he is an ordinary swindler who has not a penny for his soul. He'd just sleep with you, then he would dump you and throw you away like a used Protect. I answered with a laugh and threw a bunch of documents on which this bastard was wanted because of fraud. Stacy examined the documents in horror and looked at her lover, who was picking up his teeth from the floor. You can't look at him. Everything is over. Oh yes, I have evidence of your conspiracy against me. So you won't get well either, you stupid scum. I'm filing for divorce. Suffer the rest of your miserable life, I said and left the house. At that moment, patrol cars were already approaching here, which arrested these assholes. Soon, Stacy and her unfortunate lover were both behind bars. There was more than enough evidence for their guilt. I returned to my usual life, my revenge was successful, and now I could omit the past forever. Friends, write how you like our stories in the comments. Until new meetings.